Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy, and welcome to the live stream tonight with the new equipment for Shamrock Bank's Observatory. Let me just go ahead and get a couple of things together real quick. We'll make sure that everybody can hear. See if we have anybody listening yet. Just kind of get things together real fast. Well, good morning, MX. Good evening. How are you tonight? And Slam Dove? I'll just call you Slam. And hello to Wyoming from Michigan. How's the audio coming through? Just want to make sure that everything's looking good. Give you guys a couple of seconds to respond in chat just to let me know if the audio's good. And then we'll get going with tonight's presentation. Yep, okay, so everything's sounding great. Well, here's what we're going to do tonight. I have a new astronomy rig that I have set up that I think is going to be the ultimate in amateur astronomy rigs for the serious amateur. Let me go ahead, everybody see my cursor over here? So what we have is basically the ZWO AM5 Harmonic Mount, all right? I've got links to these from Woodland Telescope in the chat in case you're interested in these. But this has turned out to be an extraordinarily good mount. I tested it today with some solar work, and even though I couldn't get a polar line during the day, it really did a nice job. And the other day I actually got a 10-minute unguided image of Bode's Galaxy and the Cigar Galaxy, which really just was quite impressive. So this is a harmonic mount. Notice that there's no counterweight bar on this. You don't need a counterweight for any telescope that's under about 25 pounds, which will handle just about anything that we have. It'll do an 8-inch Ritchie Crayon, which is the biggest one that I've got that I'm going to be putting on this mount. I haven't tested it on that, but I've tested the 80mm refractor, and this black one here is the 110mm refractor. And we've got the ZWO 533 MC one-shot color camera back here. As mentioned, this is a 110mm refractor. I do have a guide scope on it tonight because I did test it a little bit earlier and it needs some guiding. But one thing that it does not have is a robotic focuser. So I can't do any automatic focusing with this. I have to focus it manually with a batten-off mask. And unfortunately, you know, that focus isn't perfect. It's not bad, but it isn't really at the quality that I would like to see. So let's go ahead and have a look at the Pleiades, which is what I've got up right now. These are 5-minute images of the Pleiades, and it looks like we just have about 2 of them so far. So give me just a second and we will get that started. Let me switch it over. So we're going to turn off this screen and we're going to turn on the other one. So these are the Pleiades. And if you look right here, let me auto hide this. So we're doing live stacking with SharpCap. Let's bring this up to about 50%. The thing that I really like about this is look at the nice detail we're getting in these blue gas clouds around the Pleiades. These are clouds of gas in space that are actually not around the stars of the Pleiades itself, which is in the constellation Taurus, but it's located between the stars and Earth, and the starlight shines through them. Gives them a very nice quality. You see, they almost look like little curtains, and you got really nice detail in here. So looks like the other thing that we've got here is we've got, even though this is a 5-minute image, we've got pretty round stars, and you see the focus is off a little bit. This will get better when I get the automatic focuser. This is about the best I could do with a batten-off mask. You see you got a nice central light spot here, and then you've got a rim of color around it. That could be focused a little bit better, but you know, to be honest with you, it's not bad. Now, the way that I'm running this tonight is just like any of the other telescopes that I have. I'm using my software to run it remotely. I've got a Windows gaming PC out by the observatory. This telescope is set up on the lawn outside of the observatory, and I've got power over there, and I also have wireless access in the observatory itself. So this is all hooked into that computer, and then I'm sitting here on my MacBook Pro in the house, and I'm actually taking over the computer out in the yard using Chrome Remote Desktop, and then I just run it just like any other computer. This is the way I normally run my observatory. So this is hooked up right now. Currently we are running ASCOM, and that runs through a designated ASCOM driver with the ZWO mount right there. And we're guiding on sidereal rate. I do not have a focuser hooked up, unfortunately. And we're also doing PhD2 guiding. Now, I've previously trained this to the guide scope, the mount, and the telescope focal length. So I've basically done a, I've done the configuration. I ran a new configuration since I changed scopes out. And as you can see, I'm running sub-arc second guiding. Looks like the total is about 0.71 arc seconds. And that's why we're getting these 5-minute images with no problem at all. This mount is absolutely rock solid. Unlike my CGXL mount in the observatory, which is about the size of an engine block on a VW Beetle, the entire this entire setup, including the carbon fiber tripod, the pier extension, the AM5 mount, the telescope, the camera, and everything else, this all weighs less than the optical tube on the RASO 11. So this is extremely portable. You can just throw your arm over this thing, grab the tripod, and walk it right back into the house at night when you're done. Now, coming next week on Tuesday, I've got a robotic focuser coming for it. I also have a portable power pack, so I won't need electrical power to do this. There's a little basket down here at the bottom of the tripod where I can just toss the power pack in there, and I can run the dew heater, which I have a dew heater on it tonight too, by the way. I can run the power, the cooled camera here. I can run the mount, and I can also run this device right over here. This is an ASI Air computer. And maybe we'll have a little look at that on another video. But this is a really interesting accessory because I can run the entire scope on this. It's wireless. It comes with all its own software for guiding, focusing, plate solving, and a planetarium. And more importantly, I can run this directly. I can set this up to log on to my home wireless network. And then I can literally load the software up and run this from my Mac natively. It is the only astronomy software I am aware of that is preferred to run on a Mac. So those Mac users out there that have been having to buy Windows computers to run their software and run their telescopes, this thing here allows you to run it with a MacBook Pro, which is what I'm using right now. So let's go back and have a look at our images. See how many images we have out here now. So we've got 4 5-minute images. This is about 20 minutes of data. And just look at the amount of detail that we're picking up here, even though the focus isn't perfect. Look at that really fine filamentous cloud. That's just really, really nice. You know, even though the stars look like hell and they're all bloated and everything, you're really picking up those dust clouds nicely. You are getting some speculations out in here. That could be from pinched optics. You know, there's just a couple of things that I could look at with that, and I probably will. My main job now in the future is going to be to get this focus a little bit better. Well, let's go have a little bit of fun with it. But before we get going with that, does anybody have any questions or have any requests? Let's pull up the chat real quick. Let's see who we have in here now. Oh, we got 7 people watching. We got Steve. Steve's joined us. How you doing, Steve? Hey, Judy. You got up early. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning for you, isn't it? But yeah, isn't that a nice image? Now, let's go ahead and have a look at a couple of other things. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slow down I'm going to stop the live stacking right now. And I'm going to go from a 5-minute image, which is really nice. I mean, that's a really nice imaging time. And I'm going to go to about 4 seconds. And that'll just kind of give us the star field, so at least we can figure out where we are. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start another bit of software here, which is really nice. And that's called SkyTrack. Let that kind of open up for a minute. Come on, big guy. You can do it. I'm thinking the computer's getting a little cold out there, and it might be slowing down a little bit on me. Hey, Real Cygnus. It's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. So, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Come on. Wonder why that died on me. Well, we're getting quite a few people out in here. Now, there's a couple of different ways that the telescope talks to your computer. The main way is via a third program called ASCOM. Okay, this is another way that it can talk. And that is, this is a program called SkyTrack, made by a gentleman up in Canada. Costs about $15 is the suggested donation for it, but it's very nice. What you can do here is come down here and you choose the driver. Now, normally I would use the device hub, which is the ASCOM driver, but I can actually hit the mount directly because the software for the mount is running in the back here. So what it's going to do is it's going to connect through this server right here, and then it's going to connect the mount to this software. So let's go ahead and hit that. We'll hit connect to mount. And as you can see, it's reflecting what the mount's looking at right now. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at a couple of things here. Let's look at Andromeda real quick. So we're going to go on over here to Andromeda. We've selected M31 Andromeda. We're going to hit slew to. And you see the mount starting to slew. Okay, when this turns green down here, it means that we're on target. So let's go see what we have here. Let's give this about a gain of 235 is a good gain. 4 seconds is good, just kind of sort out where we are. We'll let that catch an image or two. Here's the histogram right here. Notice that there's a spike of the data, but there's a little bit of black between the left side of the data and the limit here. So that's not a bad bit of timing for us. Okay, so here's what the mount is looking at right now, and obviously Andromeda's not there. Now this is pretty common. When the mount slews, it goes over to, you tell it to go to a particular spot, and it kind of slews on over there and kind of hopes for the best. It's generally close, but most of the time it's not dead on. So what we'll do is we'll plate solve this, and then we will recenter it on the Andromeda galaxy, and then we'll get a couple of images of it. So let's go see if it'll solve it. Let's try a 2-second image here. Sometimes it just gets too many stars and it gets a little confused. Or there's not good contrast or something or other. Doesn't want to solve, does it? Let's just make sure that it's not confused, because I turned it off when it was pointing at the Pleiades, and then I turned it back on. It kind of likes being at its home position to start with. So we'll kind of go back to the home position here real quick, and then we'll slew it back over. We'll slew it back over to Andromeda. Probably wasn't close enough to get a good solve on it. Give it just a second. There it is. Now let's see if it's a little less confused. And we've got a green bar up here. It's solved. So now it'll slew over and it'll center Andromeda right in the center of the field. And there it is. So that's the Andromeda galaxy. Now, obviously, this is just a 2-second image, but you can see Andromeda, you can see M110 down here at the bottom, and you can see M32 up here. So now let's do a little longer image, get a little more detail. Let's just do a 3-minute image and see what we have here. And we'll live stack it while we're at it. Give us a chance to clear out the Pleiades here. One other thing that we should do too is we should go ahead and start guiding again, since we're doing a longer image. So we'll pick a star. That's a nice one. And we'll guide off of that. And since we did start guiding, let's go ahead and kind of restart this sequence here. There we go. Now when you're doing live stacking in SharpCap, first of all, you want to make sure that this is your histogram. Your light curve is just basically neutralized, and you do that with a little circle. You also want to come down here to the live stacking, and you want to do the same thing. You want to normalize the colors, and you also want to make the light curve a little neutral. We'll adjust it here when we get our first image in. But in the meantime, let's go down here, have a look at the guiding. That should be pretty good. So now we just kind of wait for that first image. Sit here and just quietly watch the guiding for a few minutes. Yeah, this is a different scope. This is a 110 millimeter refractor. Here's the setup that we're using today. So here's what we're using today. I kind of went through this a little bit ago, but I'll go through it again for your benefit. Give me just a second. I've got to check something here on guiding. Okay, so this is a 110 millimeter refractor. It's called a Orion Eon 110. The camera that we're using is the 533 MC color one-shot camera, and we're using a ZWO AM5 harmonic mount. And again, the important thing is there's no counterweight here. There's no need for one up to about 25 pounds. Boy, that's having a little trouble guiding right now. Wonder why that is. Let's try. Let me just fix that real quick, see what's going on with it. Turn the tracking off, turn it back on again. See if we can do a little better job with that. There we go. That's a little better. We may have to clear out this first image because the guiding wasn't working really well. But at least we'll get an idea of what we're dealing with. All right, so that's the outfit that we're using right now, is this AM5 mount. This just arrived the other day. I purchased this some time ago, and I just finally got it paid off. But it's a really nice setup to do astronomy with, because it's very, very portable. You can run it off a little battery pack. There is something definitely wrong with the guiding tonight. I'm going to go ahead and restart that program. See, this is the garbage that I'm getting. So that's going to have to be restarted. But that's a guiding issue. And I've got to figure out what's going on with it. I'd like to think that there's no way that a cable could be snagged, but I may have to go out and have a quick look and see if there's a cable snagged out there. What would astronomy be without an occasional hiccup in the equipment? Boy, that's just that thing's drifting down. It's having an issue tonight. Yeah, let's go recalibrate it. So we'll hit stop. I'm going to go up here to Tools and adjust, modify calibration. We're going to clear the calibration. Now, before we do anything else, let's go ahead and stop this, because that's not giving me anything that I need to work with right now. Something obviously wrong with the calibration here. We'll just go ahead and redo it. So we'll go over here to Stellarium. Let's make sure that the telescope is hooked up. That's not where that is. It's obviously giving me, it's got a problem here with the sensor, so we'll go ahead and stop it. And we'll restart it real quick. Okay, tracking's on. We're connected here. Let's go ahead and connect here. Just bringing the telescope back to the home position. It's always a good practice to start everything from home. And there it is, right at the North Star. You can see that. So we bring in the constellation. So we're sitting at the North Star right now. Let's go ahead and put this down to about a 4-second exposure. Gonna kind of bring this in from old school. So we're gonna go over here to a nearby constellation. Now let's go over here to Camelopardalis. There we go. Now we'll come down to sharp cap. Take a quick image. Okay, so here's the star field that we see. Let's go plate solve that and resync. It's plate solving the image right now. It looks like it's having a little trouble. Might be too many stars. So instead of doing a 4-second image, we'll leave it right where it is and then drop it down to a 2-second image and see if that'll do a little better job. Well, well, well. Let's try a 1-second image. Let me go out there and see whether or not the scope is hung up on something. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, I went ahead and pulled up Nina real quick. Gonna see whether or not we can get a plate solve on this. Oh, you know what? Forgot to change focal length. See if we can do a little better job here. Let's try this one more time. Okay, that solved it. So we did get a plate solve here. All right. So let's go see what we've got. Oh, I'm on the wrong one here. Let's try this again. Now, sometimes when you do these things, especially when you're doing them live, you have a little issue here and there. It looks like we had one. Sharp Cap was having a little trouble plate solving tonight. Doesn't have anything to do with the telescope or the mount. It's just an issue of it's an issue with Sharp Cap. So we're gonna try and do it a little differently here. See if we can get it under control. Now, so there's Polaris, and there's the telescope, so that's about right. Now, you shouldn't try and set your telescope based on a location very close to the North Celestial Pole. What you need to do is move it off a little bit. So let's move it down to this star right here, Cocab, and see whether or not maybe we can have it plate solved there, and then it'll get itself oriented to the sky. So it's slewing over there. Once it settles, we'll go back over and see if we can plate solve again. See if we can get this show on the road. All right, so we'll take an image using Nina and see if we can plate solve that. The plate solver on Nina is a little bit better than the one on Sharp Cap. And it solved it. And it's going to center it up to where we're supposed to be. So there should be a star right here in the center. It's called Cocab. It's in Ursa Minor. It's one of the Little Dipper stars, and that's pretty close. So we didn't do too badly. As a matter of fact, it may even adjust that a little further to get it exactly in the center. So, now the telescope knows where it is. Let's make this a little smaller. So let's go over here to the celestial, to the ecliptic here. And let's see if we can get guiding doing a little better. So here's the hub. Here's the telescope moving down towards our target right here, which is near Jupiter. We'll go ahead and get that. We'll get the calibration started, and then we will go check. I'll check out the chat and see what's going on over there. Okay, so it's gonna SCOM driver failed. That's weird. Let's see what's going on here. No, that's fine. Start PhD 2 again. Let's connect our equipment. Good. Start a loop. There, now it's going to start calibrating that again. I'll go over here and take some images real quick just so we can see what's going on. Let's check out the chat real fast. Sorry, we had a failure there with PhD 2. That didn't have anything to do with the mount or anything else. It's just it was a software issue with a computer out in the yard. Hey, Lubo. Did you, Lubo, did you check out the links that I put in the description? And why not use Astar for plate solving? That'll be in the next video. Right now, I'm kind of doing it the old school way. I'm just doing it the same way. I'm just using the mount itself as a, just like a regular mount. I'm going to introduce the ASI Air in the next video where we're going to run it all. Well, yeah, there might be a little bit of, ASI Air. Yeah, there may be a little dew on the guide scope. I'm not really all that worried about it. It's working. Just switch Windows to Mac. All right. Well, that's a good question. I am a Mac user. I have an M1 MacBook Pro is what I use for work and everything. And, and that's what I use at the office. It's just basically, I prefer Macs. However, I had to use Windows computers for most of my astronomy software because most of the astronomy software only runs on Windows. So I've got a gaming laptop out in the observatory that runs all of the runs all of the equipment out there. And then what I do is I sit in the house on my Mac and I take over that computer using Chrome Remote Desktop. Now, the interesting thing about the ASI Air is that I have the ASI Air software on my Mac, and I can run it natively on my Mac. The big advantage of the ASI Air is that you can control it with any smartphone, be it an Android or being an iOS, or you can use a tablet. It does struggle a little bit with a Windows computer, but surprisingly, it runs natively on a Mac. So what I do is I use station mode on the ASI Air. The ASI Air has its own wireless network, and it acts as a hotspot, and you can hook your phone up or your tablet up to that, or you can actually run it as a station mode and run it off of your home network, which is what I do. So basically, I start the software on my Mac here. It sees the ASI Air out in the yard, and it just hooks it right in. I mean, it's seamless. It does plate solving. It does polar alignment. It does imaging. It does live stacking. I mean, it's a complete package. And that's one of the neat things about running the ASI Air. The only disadvantage of the ASI Air is it's a ZWO product. And as a result, you have to use a ZWO mount and a ZWO camera and a ZWO focuser. The AM5 is a ZWO mount. I got it specifically to integrate with the ASI Air. I've always used ZWO cameras and ZWO focusers. I did use a Prima Luce focuser a couple of times, and to be honest with you, I'm very disappointed in Prima Luce. I think that they're overpriced and they really don't work that well. But I've been extremely pleased with both the Celestron robotic focusers on the RASA and the ZWO focusers on some of my other scopes. They really seem to work well. Okay, Lupo is talking about narrowband filters. Narrowband filters are generally used for oxygen, sulfur, and hydrogen. An advantage of a narrowband filter is that you don't have any issues with light pollution, and it picks up specific molecules in the gas clouds. So you can you can identify the hydrogen, the oxygen, and the sulfur in a nebula, for example. You can assign individual colors to those things, and that's where you get these Hubble type images from. That's called the Hubble palette. And yes, the ASI Air is very robust. It's designed to be used outside, unlike a laptop, which doesn't necessarily like humidity. And it doesn't like really cold temperatures, which is something that I'm running into an issue with right now. Plus, you get dew on the keyboard and things like that. So, looks like our guiding is starting to come together a little bit better now. I am going to check one last thing. And that'll just take a little while to run, but we're kind of chatting here in the meantime. But the ASI Air is very robust. It's sealed. It's designed to be used outside. You don't have all those problems. Plus, it's a tiny little thing. It's about the size of a deck of cards, maybe a little bit larger. Runs off of a 12 volt 5 amp power supply, just like the mount does. You can slave the mount and the ASI air and just run it with a single plug. I did run into some issues with trying to run the mount, the ASI air, the camera, and the dew heater all off of the same plug. There's just not enough amps on it, and I don't want to overamp it. So I power the camera separately, and I run the and I also power the dew heater a little separately too, although I'm going to be messing around with the power supply here a little bit when I get the battery pack in on Tuesday. But yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. So what I'm doing right now, let's see what you're seeing here. So I've set up, I've calibrated guiding, and now what I'm doing is I'm actually monitoring the guiding itself to see what I've got here. So it says here that my polar alignment might be a little bit off, but the guiding itself is in really good shape. I mean, again, we're sub-arc second here. So it's just going to take a couple minutes. And just to show you guys one more time, here's the rig that we're using tonight. That's the AM5 ZWO AM5 mount. This is a Orion Eon 110 refractor, and that's a ZWO 533 color camera in the back. This right here is the ASI air. You see, it's about the size of a pack of cards. Right now I'm running this as a standard mount, so the cable, the PC cable here, is going off to my computer. When I run it with the ASI air, what I do is that cable stays plugged in, but it just loops around and it plugs into the back of the ASI air instead of the computer, and I take the computer inside. We may do that a little bit later if it starts getting colder. I'm thinking I might have a little bit of a polar alignment error here. We may just check that real quick when it gets done with this, because that's a little bit more than I'm used to having. Normally I get it down to under 5 arc minutes here. When you actually do the polar alignment, it's under 10 arc seconds. But I may go out and do a quick polar alignment using Sharp Gap here in a minute. Just do a couple of things with that real fast. So how's everybody doing tonight? It's a beautiful night for astronomy. Really excited to put this mount through its paces. We'll have a look at it a little bit more here in a bit, as far as looking at satellites and things like that. So Lubo's suggesting the dew heater and the mount should be powered separately, and then use the ASI. I guess use the power the ASI off the mount. Is that what you're suggesting? And then run the camera off the ASI air. Okay, Real Cygnus, total noob. What do you mean by guiding? Wasn't it already aimed? Well, yes, it was. So what happens is, when you look at a target with a mount, with an equatorial mount, that mount will turn to counter. That mount will turn to counter the rotation of the Earth. However, it's not perfect. There are small errors in the gears in the mount. Maybe they get a little bit worn, or maybe they're just not perfectly machined. So what happens is you get a little bit of a drift here and there. So just using the mount, for the most part, you can get images of up to about a minute. But if you want to go longer than that, you have to do something called guiding. Okay, separate power for mount and separate power for dew heaters. So that's 2 power supplies. Yeah, okay, so where are you powering the camera from? Do you plug that into the ASI air? Is that what you're suggesting, Lupo? So yeah, so what happens is, with a guide camera, what it'll do is it'll look at a star field in the general direction of what the telescope is looking at. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll lock onto a star and it'll keep that star in the crosshairs, and it'll make small corrections every 2 or 3 seconds just to keep it perfect. Okay, so you run the camera, the guide camera, off of the ASI air. All right, that makes sense. So we'll have a look at it. Are you running 5 amp power supplies in to the mount, 5 amps into the dew heater, and then you just use the attachment cable from the mount to the ASI air to power it, and then power the cameras off of the ASI air. We'll have a quick look at that and see what it looks like when I get my power supply. So right now what the guide software is doing is it's fine-tuning the guiding and looking at backlash, and it's going to make some adjustments to the guiding from that. It should be done here in a couple of minutes, and then we'll sit down and start having some fun with this again. But I put some good links in the description of this video. That's got a link to the mount, it's got a link to the cameras, and it's got a link to the ASI air. You know, if you follow those links, it'll take you over to telescopes.net, which is Woodland Hills Telescope and Camera. They're sponsors of the Observatory, which you know, doesn't have any effect on the equipment or anything like that. I don't get any sort of commissions from it. And more importantly, I buy all of my equipment from them for full price. And basically, I use everything I talk about. So it's not like I'm trying to push equipment here or anything. But this is a really nice setup. It's light. It's very, very accurate. You don't have to worry about collimation. Pretty soon we're going to be looking at another aspect of astronomy, and that's solar astronomy, because I have a Coronado Solar Max 3 coming, and we're going to do a lot of solar astronomy. I kind of made the decision to do that because I live in Michigan, and we have a lot of clouds here. I mean, it's Michigan. We're surrounded by water, and I live on a lake. You know, come on. It's also quite cold during the winter, and it's very buggy during the summer. And one of the things that I thought about doing is many times it's sunny during the day and then clouds up at night. Looking at solar astronomy with a hydrogen alpha telescope like the Solar Max 3 gives me an opportunity to use the equipment more and to look at an aspect of astronomy that's skipped over by a lot of people. Today I was just looking at a white light filter on this same setup and just looking at sunspots. Had a little fun with that. That's very inexpensive to do, and you just need a filter for whatever telescope you happen to have, just the correct size for the front of it. It's basically reflective mylar. And you can see sunspots, and you can see prominences, solar flares on the edges of the sun with that. The hydrogen alpha, you can really see fine detail on the surface of the sun with a lot of contrast. You get the granules, you get a lot of sunspots and a lot of the different, the different colorations and spicules and things like that. The granules, the supergranules, the phases, the fascicles, and all sorts of things. And we'll go over all that when I start doing a little more solar astronomy. But it gives me something that I can do during the day that doesn't depend on light pollution. There's no issues with dew. You don't have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing this crap when you got to go to work at 5. You know, it's just there's a lot of advantages to it, especially for, given the light pollution that we're dealing with in most areas of the world. You know, the eastern half of the United States is just basically, Bortle 6, 7, 8, and a lot of people don't have good clear skies at night. So solar astronomy would be a very good option for them. Plus, we have a major solar eclipse coming up in April. I will be down in Carbondale, Illinois, probably at the airport. And hopefully I'm going to be able to live stream it with the Solar Max in this very setup right here, which is why I got this setup, was to do portable work with it like that. So we'll see. Yeah, Lupo is doing some filter work on the sun as well. You can do white filters, you can do potassium filters, hydrogen alpha, especially a double stacked hydrogen alpha like I've got coming with the Solar Max 3, is going to be really nice. Good night, Steve. You have a good one. By the way, Sean, are you still out there? I see you're from Midland. You know I'm right next door to you, right? Boy, this thing is taking forever to calibrate that guiding. Yeah. You know I'm right next door to you, right? All right. You're not in Sunset, are you? They've got a meeting on the 14th in Saginaw that I'm actually going to be the speaker for. I'm going to talk about asteroid detection and measurements, and then I'm also going to talk about this rig a little bit, and I'm probably going to bring the rig with me just to demonstrate it. That'll be at the library on the 14th, about 6 o'clock. Boy, this is dragging on, isn't it? I hate this damn calibration thing. But I'm getting really good tracking. You know what? I think I've had about enough of that. I was intrinsically getting pretty good tracking, so I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to use that one. Give me just a second. Let me make an adjustment here. Let's try that one. Yeah, I got a little dew on the guide scope, but it's working. Okay, so the RA and the declination guiding is starting to come back together here again. Generally takes about 10 seconds to settle down, so we'll see where we are now. I think we should be okay. But in any event, let's go ahead and see what we got here. So there's the Andromeda Galaxy right there. Give it a second to kind of settle. This will pretty much automatically plate solve real quick to make sure that we've got the correct location. Okay, so it's plate solved and recentered. Let's go see what it looks like. It should be right in the center there. And there it is. Can't get any better than that. So, let's turn the camera off here. Turn the camera on in SharpCap. Let's take some images of Andromeda. What do you guys think? Well, Sean, I look forward to seeing you there. I'm glad you were able to make the stream tonight. I do enjoy doing this stuff. That's the one we want.